Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Caroline. Welcome as well. Welcome to IE Online and to this masterclass that is entitled Creating a Business Manifesto for an Architectural Venture. Our guest lecturer today, as you all know, is Caroline Cole. Caroline is our professor at the Master in Business for Architecture and Design, MBArch, which just changed its name from Master in Architectural Management and Design, along with a series of other very exciting changes that should be in our website on Friday for you to consult and to get acquainted with. Caroline is one of the most renowned experts in architectural design strategy and communication in UK. She has led prominent competitions for private and public works all across the country and internationally, and helped as well a number of design studios to take their offices, their practices several steps further. So we are very lucky to have her teaching at the MBArch, and she does so concretely in two courses. First, design communication and strategy, and second, value creation through design. Both of these courses are deeply related to this lecture, which is at the same time very related with two of our main drivers in the program, and I would dare to say at the whole IE School of Architecture and Design. The first driver is the idea that business and design are stronger together, that applying some of these perspectives is fundamental for architects to become or stay relevant. And the second idea is that architects have a tremendous capacity to deliver value to society in a very wide array of creative ways, which not only coincides with their classical roles, to say, and we call that at the school an expanded understanding of design. So spatial intelligence and spatial advocacy can go much further than what we are used to. And communication and vision, from the beginning of a practice to its whole life, are important to define what we ought to become as architects and as a practice itself. So without further ado, it's a pleasure for me to welcome Caroline. I really hope that you all enjoy this time and ask lots of questions. And as I was saying, she will, or I will address them on the go or at the end. So Caroline, the stage is yours. I will now disconnect my cam, but I will stay here. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
You're welcome.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
go ahead.
So, hello everybody, and first of all, just to say, I'm really delighted to have been asked to do this session, and I hope that you find it useful. Just waiting for the presentation to load. Okay, here we go. Creating a business manifesto for an architectural venture. Geronimo has explained a little bit about Colander, my business. I think it's worth just saying that I personally have worked as an architect with design companies, and I have also worked client side, commissioning architects and commissioning designers. So I now sit on the fence between the supply side and the demand side of the business, hopefully bringing to bear my experiences from both sides to try and help that communication work better. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is how to make sure that when you're running an architectural business, you really are running a business that works. And it's not just an opportunity to make brilliant buildings, but it is also an opportunity to be really creative and to create a business that allows your professional expertise to flourish. Now, I'm not quite, don't seem to be managing to move through. Here we go. There we go.
Right. Okay, good.
Worked it out now, yes. I would say that without a strong business and a healthy profit, architects cannot afford to be good professionals because they won't have the money that enables them to improve their craft, to be able to research, to be curious, to expand their knowledge, to explore better ways of delivering value, let alone having the time and the energy to create great architecture. Because without a good income that does more than just pay the bills, these sorts of aspiring professional ambitions become almost unattainable, because there just isn't enough money to nurture and develop new ideas, or to invest in new technologies and improved ways of working, let alone the luxury and time that you need as professionals to enhance your intellectual capabilities. But it's just as important, I believe, that the profession's relationship with the outside world, with their clients and the markets in which they're working, are also very carefully thought through. And I happen to believe that it's really important that architects are valued by those who create our built environment. But they will only value architects if architects are engaging with the world from a position of professional and financial strength and respect. Rather sadly, though, most architects find it incredibly difficult to run a successful practice. And I don't just mean the day-to-day grind of running a business, most of which seems to revolve around money, whether it's fee negotiations, cash flow, overheads, salaries, invoicing, debtor and credit days, work in progress, or dealing with the bank. What I mean is the business of creating wealth from happy people working on interesting projects that then in turn feed the good reputation of the practice. And I think that, to me, is the definition of running a successful practice. So the question is, why is that so hard to achieve? I believe that the main reason is that architects like being architects. The things that excite and fulfill them evolve around design and creating projects. And as a result, given the option of working out the cash flow for the next 3 months, or creating a new business submission document, or ensuring that the office manual conforms to all the latest employment legislation, most architects actually retreat to the drawing board, which is fine, only if the nice jobs still arrive at the door with a healthy fee attached, and if the best staff also magically appear to help deliver those jobs. But for most, unfortunately, the real world is not like that. And to make matters worse, we have a conundrum. Architecture across the globe remains a cottage industry. In the UK, for example, more than half practices employ fewer than 5 people. And I don't think it's that much different in other parts of the developed world. Now, many architects will be happy running these small practices, trusted by one-off, primary local clients, and undertaking the kind of work that these clients are offering. So residential extensions and alterations, occasional one-off new buildings, and occasional local commercial buildings. I suggest that because of their scale, these practices have to be self-managing. They are too small to justify employing people to simply develop, run, and manage the business. So the leaders of these small-scale practices will need to be prepared to juggle business management with project work. And to succeed, they will need to do both well. At the other end of the scale, less than 5% of UK architects employ more than 50 people. And again, I suspect that that's pretty much the same in other parts of the world. So unless you are planning to set up a practice yourself from scratch, you will find that as an architectural business manager, the number of practice that might employ you is actually comparatively small. It is perhaps unsurprising that the Colander benchmarking survey of the profession in the UK has repeatedly shown that there is an ever-increasing divide between the practices that do domestic and local work and those that do civic, corporate or commercial work. Now, frankly, apart from the fact that both of these kinds of practices offer architectural services to their clients, there is very, very little else that is similar. The kinds of work they do is different. The kind of clients they work for is different. And the aspirations of those clients and the working methodologies imposed by those clients are also different. And the scale of operation that's required, and crucially, the management of those organizations in which they operate, are completely different. So to attract the right clients with the right projects, yes, you need to be a good architect, but you also need to be running the right kind of architectural business. Architects that have a desire to break into the markets that favour the larger practices and to do the kind of projects they do, the museums, the cultural buildings, the commercial offices, schools, civic buildings, hospitals, transport hubs and so on, will need to create a business where senior people spend proper time and effort working on the business rather than just on projects. And I guess the question is whether you get people in to do that for you or whether you decide to do that yourself. And I think that this is a really good example of where a course like this course that IE is running can be incredibly helpful. So I would say that the first thing you need to do to create a thriving architectural business is forward planning. And with any business, to think about blue sky thinking, coupled with some very honest and pragmatic analysis of the markets, and therefore the people that you will need to convince if you are going to establish the kind of business that you want to work in. Now, I don't think that this means starting with a straitjacket of a business plan, or rather, it doesn't mean starting with an accountant's view of a business plan. Personally, I think that the spreadsheet of figures that so many people think constitutes a plan is simply the thing that falls out at the end of a well-crafted vision. It is not the starting point, and it does not define the purpose of the business. Why do I say this? Because we are talking about setting up an architectural business. And as all architects will tell you, they are special, and so is their business. And how are they special? Well, to my view, primarily because they rarely go into business simply to make money. If that were the aim, then they would have chosen a different path. After all, most architects get top grades at high school and could therefore choose any number of far more lucrative professions to follow if what they wanted to do was simply make money. Essentially, architects are following a vocation, which means they are selling themselves, their colleagues, their ideas, their attitude and mind, their initiative, their commitment, understanding, expertise, and above all else, their enthusiasm. Simon Jones, who is MD of the brand experts Interbrand, Newell and Sorrell, who you may have heard of, suggests that as a service industry, which after all architecture is, 45% of winning is down to personal chemistry, with a further 30% resulting from being able to demonstrate that you really care about the project in hand. In other words, some 75% of success in terms of convincing people that you are the right people for them to work with is down to attitude. Now, the message here is that to be successful as an architectural practice, you have to be able to knit together enthusiasm, knowledge, commitment, and involvement. And with all the best will in the world, you are not going to do that unless you are personally enthused by the prospect in hand. So please don't, for example, decide that you want to set up an architectural firm that is majoring in housing projects simply because money is being pumped into the housing market at the moment. The only aim for the housing sector, if you feel it would be a great sector to work in. Otherwise, you will turn into one of those miserable, unfulfilled architects, of which there are already far too many in this world. So, because we are talking about setting up an architectural business, I'd like to suggest that you start not with the spreadsheet, but with an architectural manifesto. A description of the quality and type of architecture that the leaders of your practice want to do. The trick then is to create the right business environment and culture that will then enable this to happen. So if you want to create a successful architectural practice, start with a dream and project yourself into the future. So let's pretend that we're all sitting here like this, but instead of it being June 2019, it is June 2024, 5 years hence. What do you want to be able to say that you have achieved as an architectural business in the last 5 years, since June 2019? And where are you now in terms of your architectural journey? And if we were to pretend that the last 5 years have been successful beyond your wildest dreams, try to describe what you are doing now in 2024. What kind of clients are you working with? What kind of projects have you built and are you now working on? And really importantly, what kind of a reputation have you established? When you walk into a room, do people say, "Oh my goodness me, there's so-and-so"? Or do people not know who you are? Okay, think about what reputation you want to have established. Because the idea is to start to define in your own mind who you want to sell what to and why. Why being the operative word. What is important though, is that the aspirations for your business are founded on the individual aspirations of the key people involved in that business. And I say this because for architects, it will be far more than simply making money. And if you have a group of architects who have different ideas about what success actually means, then you will have a great deal of problem trying to hold them together in one single business entity. So really bottoming out and understanding what everybody wants to achieve with the business and working out how those aspirations can live side by side with each other is going to be incredibly important. The purpose of this process is to define and articulate exactly what that success will look like in the minds of the key people involved in your business. You must iron out any conflicts and ensure that there is a clear understanding of the kind of practice you want to become in the future, because only then can you plan a route towards making your dream a reality. You and your team may actually find it's quite hard to get these thoughts out onto paper. So you might benefit from asking an independent facilitator to help you to articulate your thoughts and marshal them into a format that enables you to really explore what they mean. I know I often find myself going and talking to an architectural practice where everyone says, "Oh yes, we know what we're doing, we know what we want to be, we have a very clear idea." And then I ask them to explain it to me, And because no one has written it down, you start to get all sorts of amazing ideas, but none of them are concrete and none of them are articulated in a way that will be able to be explained to anyone else in the outside world. So, where do you start? How do you start to fill in some of that blank piece of paper? Before launching into a flurry of activity, working out how to achieve your dreams, you and your colleagues will be well advised to also understand where you are right now and what baggage you're carrying with you and how useful that baggage will be moving forward. And I think this is true if you have an existing practice that you're trying to move into the next phase, but it's also true if you don't have a practice at all and you're just starting out. Now, one way of marshalling your thoughts is to undertake a SWOT analysis. Some of you will know what that is, but a SWOT analysis is where you firstly consider the strengths and weaknesses of your current situation. So, what are your core skills? What are you lacking? Are you proud of what you've done? Are your clients proud of what you've done? Have you done anything as yet? Who knows about you? Who knows what you do? Do you have enough secure work in the coming months to allow you to focus on business strategy? Do you have too much work? Are you going to be completely distracted? Do you have money in the bank to invest? And so on and so forth. All sorts of different issues that you should be considering. You should then think about the opportunities and the threats that the outside world might throw at you as you embark on your business development, because understanding these will enable you to grow your aspirations into reality. Now, the key to doing a successful SWOT analysis is that you understand that the strengths and the weaknesses are things which are within your own control. They're things which you can improve on, or they're things which you could lose. The opportunities and the threats are things which are completely outside of your control. They are things which you will be bombarded with from the outside world. And to consider opportunities and threats, the PEST checklist is a good one to follow. Here, you look at issues which are political, which might influence how your business might progress. So, for example, in the UK at the moment, with the dreaded Brexit going on, what you'll find is that many practices are finding it really difficult to recruit staff, or that European staff are moving back to Europe. And so there's a staff shortage, which is affected purely by political influences. E stands for economic. So what are the economic trends which might be things which are going to influence what's going on? So S is social, social trends which are going to affect your work, and technological. And by goodness me, there are so many technological changes going on at the moment, and how will they affect your business moving forward? And then the final, environmental, which probably ought to be the most important of all, given the climate and biodiversity emergency that we are all facing. Now, some people will also add an L to this list, and an L to stand for legal, because in many countries, the legal framework within which architects have to work can be incredibly onerous as well. Once you've understood where you are now and defined where you want to get to, then, quite frankly, you have done the hard bit. And so, for that reason, I would urge you to spend as much time as you need, particularly on that first issue of defining where you want to get to. The next step is quite simply to plan the best route. Bearing in mind, of course, that the best laid plans never run smoothly, and life will inevitably blow you off course at times. and whisk you along much faster than you ever imagined at other times. So any plan that you're putting together needs to be done with an element of flexibility to it. Needs to have, you mustn't treat it as though it's set in stone. It is an idea about how you might get to a certain point. But it will need, and it definitely will need, to move and to change as things go on. Right. It is important to recognize that business planning takes time. And it takes proper time. It takes quality time. It's not something that can be done over a weekend or by one person in their spare time. If it is to be effective, then business planning must draw contributions from all key members of the practice. And people will need time to think about the issues and to discuss the implications of all the research and to have time to reach conclusions. After all, this is the future that you are thinking about, and it needs to be thought through quite carefully. It's almost certain that a number of meetings will be required to summarize ideas, to discuss ideas, and to reach agreement. It is also likely that there will be disagreements as you go along, and the disagreements must not be papered over. The disagreements must be opened, must be discussed, must be dug through to make sure that they are all sorted out. Do not rush the process, and be sure to create an atmosphere of constructive collaboration. And it may be that actually to achieve this, it's best to take time away from the office and go to a neutral venue where everybody can talk openly. Broad agreement is needed on who you want to sell what to and why before any progress can be made. So discuss and agree how much management time you are going to allocate to this exercise, and make sure that the time is factored in to the day job so that people aren't expected to be working 100% of their time on fee earning work and also to be doing the business planning at the same time. Most importantly, get started on your business plan. One of the things I hear so often is people saying, oh, we can't start yet because we need more information. That will always be the case. So start and you gather information as you get going. So where to start? Once you have the agreed aspirations for the practice, make sure that everyone who will be expected to deliver any aspect of that plan is involved in the process to ensure that ownership and buy-in are actually part of the story. Oh, I'm heading the wrong way. What topics might you think about? Well, the financing, the marketing, how are you going to get your reputation out there? New business, how are you actually going to generate new projects? The people side of things and the HR, who's going to be looking after that? How are they going to engage with people? Your premises and equipment, your IT, your project management. What are the working methodologies that you want to put in place for your practice? And client management. How are you going to deal with your clients? What kind of a relationship do you want to have with them? And of course, your design culture. And the design culture that is going to inform the rest of the business. Because the culture of your practice will be the thing that sets the tone for all those other things on this list. Now, you might find that as you go along with your business planning and as you start to get to the point where you're trying to work out how you're going to create all these different things, that you set up working parties that address each of these issues, Or if you're only a very small group of people, that you plan a set of meetings at which you are going to review each of these people. What is important is that one person or one group of people take responsibility for coordinating all the activities and drawing everything in to a single business plan. Now, what is important is that your business plan should be unique to your practice. Unique to your practice. I can't stress that enough. And people quite often say to me, can you give me a business plan that we can copy? Absolutely not. This has got to come from your soul. It's got to come from your discussions, because this is about the architectural business that you want to be. It needs to reflect the particular aspirations for your practice. And the way it's written and presented must therefore do that as well. So for some practices, it might only be a handful of pages, or it might run to a whole Bible with appendices. It might be full of pictures and images, or it might be very, very wordy. And whatever, it actually doesn't matter, so long as it is clear, concise, and critically, so long as it is inspirational to you and your team. So don't feel afraid about pushing the boat out. It's not a legal document. It's not even a public document. It's intended to be motivational and inspirational to everyone in the practice. Now, as I said earlier, your business plan should be a living document that's used as a reference tool by everyone in the practice. Some parts will be useful for clients or prospective clients, but many topics will be confidential, and you will want to be able to keep them to one side. And certainly some of the detailed financial information I suggest would only be for partners or directors, and perhaps, but not necessarily, your bank. So the format of the plan should allow relevant topics to be shared while allowing others to remain confidential. Now, there are lots of things that you need to consider, so a framework for marshalling your thoughts is important. Step one, I would say, is your vision for the future, the bigger picture. This is the why am I doing this? Why am I bothering? What are we trying to achieve? Once you've done that, then step two should be the goals and targets, which are specific achievements, specific things that you need to do to achieve or to set you on the route to achieving that greater vision for the future. And the third thing are the tasks that need to be done to enable you to achieve those goals and targets. Now, this isn't rocket science, it's very simple, but the absolutely critical rule is to remember that step two follows step one, and step three follows steps 1 and 2. What many architects do, because you are all task orientated and you all want to jump in and make things happen, very often architects fall into the trap of trying to start with step 3 without having sorted out steps 1 and 2. If you do that, you will not create a useful or a successful plan. So, step 1, your aims and aspirations. Start with your architectural aspirations as defined in your discussion around that 5-year vision that we talked about earlier. And in putting together your aims and aspirations, you might like to put them under a certain number of headings. So, for example, what kinds of clients and projects will you need to be working on if you are to achieve those architectural aspirations? And what kind of services will you need to deliver to those clients? And this is about what those clients need as much as it's about the sorts of services that you think you would like to deliver. And then what kind of people and skills will you need in your business if you are going to deliver those services? Maybe you need some specialists. Maybe you need some managers. Maybe you need some people who are exceptionally creative. I don't know. But each business will want different people depending on the services and the clients that they are working through. Then think about the working methods. Your clients will expect a certain quality and a certain kind of working methodology. And how are you going to make sure that your working methods reflect those that the kinds of clients you want to work with are looking for? And it's one of the things which I've been acutely aware of with small practices. As they start to move into working with more corporate clients, they find that their working methodologies need to step up quite considerably. So working methodologies and clients have a very close synergy. And that leads me on to think then about client management. What kind of client management are you after? How are you going to build the relationship with the right people to ensure that the right kind of clients actually feel comfortable working with you? What kind of marketing and new business development activities are you going to have to adopt to attract those the kind of clients you want to work with? Yeah, if what you're looking to do is to do house extensions in the locality of your office, then maybe the thing to do is simply to put leaflets around in everybody's letterbox. That's actually quite effective. That's not going to work if you're looking to work with big corporate clients. So what marketing and new business activities will attract the kind of clients that you want to work with? And of course, that then leads on to what kind of a reputation you want in the big wide world out there. Because absolutely the most beautiful thing is when the phone rings and the right person with the right project opportunity is on the other end of the phone. And that's not going to happen unless you have the right reputation out there in the marketplace. What do you need in terms of premises and working environment, in terms of size, quality, character? What kind of character are you giving across to the people who are working with you and the people who want to work with your clients and so on? You're also going to need to think long and hard about IT and the systems and the software that you have in your office. But critically important with that as well is the skills required to then use them effectively. We have a lot of practices that are finding themselves starting to use BIM much more, but they actually don't have the people and the skills to operate BIM systems effectively. So training is linked with IT in a very big way. And then of course, staff management. What do you want your staff to feel like? What will they value about working with you? Is this a sweatshop that you're setting up? Or is it a place where everybody absolutely loves coming into work? Is it somewhere where the junior people are allowed to have design freedom? Is it somewhere that's much more hierarchical? And so on and so forth. So thinking about how you work with your staff is going to be important. And then of course, thinking about the practice structure and the size. Is it a huge practice you're looking to set up? Is it a very small specialist practice? Is it hierarchical? Are you going to set up as a partnership? Are you going to set up as an employee-owned trust? Are you going to want to grow your business? And if so, why? What's the purpose of growth? And then of course, and finally, you have this financial management. Financial planning to support your dream. So to think over the next 5 years, what is your projected money in and money out? What are you going to need in terms of investment? And not to be frightened or putting down some fairly big figures into your plan, because if you write them down, then you're very much more able to work out then how you might achieve them. Now, I would suggest that on each of those headings, and you may think of other headings that you want to add, that you write down a paragraph or two about each of them, describing what your practice dream will be like in 5 years' time, and include also some of the things from your SWOT analysis to set the scene. Moving on then to step 2, your goals and targets, and defining how you plan to go about achieving your aims. Now, it's important that your goals and targets relate specifically to those aims that you have written down in your wider vision. So it makes sense to set your goals and targets out under the same headings listed above. Now, to coin a fairly standard business management phrase, goals and targets must be SMART. And this means they must be specific. You must be able to describe them really clearly. They must be measurable. You must be able to say when you have achieved this task, or if it still hasn't quite been achieved. They need to be agreed. Everyone needs to agree that these tasks are the ones which have to be put in place to allow the vision to be realized. And they also must be realistic. If they're not realistic, then it becomes incredibly depressing trying to make things happen when they're obviously not able to be done. And they must be time bound. So you're not just saying, okay, well, we need to do this, and then 6 months' time still find it hasn't happened because everybody's been too busy. You need to say, we're going to achieve this, and we're going to achieve it in the next 2 months. And then you need to review whether you have achieved it. And if the kind of targets that you're setting are not all of these things, then they should not be included. Absolutely, they must be SMART. So then we come on to the final thing, the tasks and the actions. Now this section should explain how you are going to achieve those goals and targets. And ideally, they should of course be set out under similar headings, and they might be included in the main text of your business plan. But I would strongly advise that they are also laid out in a table with names and dates attached. So this is the task, these are the people who are going to do it, and this is when it's going to be done by. And that section of your plan then becomes a working document, which you can then update as and when tasks are achieved and as and when new tasks are defined. The action plan requires clearly defined, succinct and achievable tasks. It should be clear how you will know when each task has been achieved, and I think who needs to sign it off. It also needs someone or a group of people willing or able to take on each task, and it needs adequate resources allocated to it, whether it's money, technical support, management support, or simply time for key individuals to spend on it. And it needs real time allocated so that management time is recognized as being just as important as project time. And as I said before, each task needs to have its own agreed time frame. So start date, milestones if they're needed, and an end date. Initially, many of your actions will probably generate further actions. So for example, you might know that you want to target local developers who are working in the housing market, but that doesn't mean to say you know how to do that at the moment. And so you might actually need to start off by doing some research. Similarly, you might know that you want to have a very good piece of time management and financial accounting software, but what this is, or where you might find it, or who might make it work, are things which still need to be sorted. So undertaking research, seeking professional advice might be the first things on your task list. And then you will grow and develop into more detailed actions and more specific actions that help you make your plan a reality. Now, a plan will help you start on that exciting journey of making your dreams become a reality. And whether you call those musings a practice plan, a manifesto, a vision, or a business plan, it really doesn't matter. The point is that you need to articulate what you and your colleagues, if you have them, want to achieve personally as architects, so you can then work out how best to achieve these aspirations as businessmen and women. It is a physical manifestation of all your thinking to help you to then plan a route from getting from where you are now to where you want to get to. So essentially, all it is a tool. It's nothing to be scared of. And as with all plans, this one needs to be a working document. It needs to be tended, it needs to be nurtured. It's not one for the shelf. It should be reviewed, maybe fortnightly, and new actions, dates, and commitments should be added as appropriate. I'm not suggesting that you change the overall vision on a weekly basis, but I am suggesting that the action plan needs to be kept up to date. Your plan will not be successful if it does not reflect consensus amongst the key players in your practice. So it is critical that you are all committed to the agreed actions with a common focus achieved through consultation. If you are not all singing from the same hymn sheet, then it will become apparent very quickly, and you need to go back to the consultative discussions and revisit where you want to get to. Now, I would say, as you would expect me to, that developing your practice's manifesto or plan is probably the most important thing that you will ever do in running a practice. Without it, you are leaving the future to chance, and you will be unlikely to develop the most effective practice through which to deliver those wonderful projects that you dream about. You need to respect your plan, you need to nurture your plan, and you need to do your damnedest to deliver it. Treat it like a project. Give it a program, give it a budget, milestones, a reporting framework, and above all else, give it time. Proper, quality time. Not time that's shoehorned between projects or into evenings and weekends. Prioritize the actions on the action list. Make sure they are given just as much value as those that relate to your project work. Because your plan is a tangible link between your dreams and reality. And by making it happen, you'll bring it all together. And as they say in England, the world will be your oyster. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. That was a very nice lecture, I believe very clear, very sequential. So I hope that everyone enjoyed. I see that already people is typing. I very quickly take profit to remind you that we still have some time to take questions if anyone is willing to. Meanwhile, I would like to, in a couple of minutes, just give a couple of comments while people think about them. I think it was very interesting how you started speaking about money. It's really interesting, this vision that we have, that money is something that covers the basic, it covers your salary and covers the basic operational costs. But I've been speaking with international architects that get a commission outside, abroad. Let's say a Spanish architect, a commission in China, and then after being several years there, going for some time there and coming back, they realize that the project has ended, the resources of that project have ended, and they haven't had any moment or any resource plan to actually develop some market there, right? So they need to win again and start the cycle from the beginning. Whereas a different, a more planned vision helps you to spare some of these resources, which are not only to pay for operations, but to make magic happen in a way, right? And it's not only magic inside your office, but and the people inside the people and your team that work for you, but as well everything that your practice projects outside, right? Like research and development, which has to do with all of these very interconnected factors that you were commenting. But one of them, just to put on the table, would be reputation, right?
Yeah.
R&D, innovation, and reputation, this image that you want to create, and so on and so forth. So I have some people here asking, do we type or shout out? James. James, whatever. Okay, Caroline is saying
I said
type, please.
type,
So
and
there
that,
we go.
you can shout out if you like, but I'm not sure if I have the.
Yeah,
Can
sometimes it's more confusing. Yeah, I was
I
just
hear
gonna say do
shout
whatever you want,
out?
but sometimes it's easier, and other people can read it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the thing about having a little bit of money means that you can breathe a little bit easier.
Hmm.
Um, it means that you have the brain space to think. And I remember when in 2000 and when was it 2012 when there was the big crash. Um, Up until then, many practices have been thinking about their future, have been getting very excited about doing R&D, about looking at different sectors, looking at how they might develop new relationships with different materials and so on and so forth. And then came the crash, and suddenly all they could do was think about how they were going to keep their businesses running. And
Yeah,
so having the in a way, it's a luxury of having money in the bank, having time on your hands that you can then start to really be a good architect. Very
yeah,
important.
absolutely. So there we go. We've got a question from Mayol Arquitectos.
The,
Would you?
okay, so what would you consider the biggest setback that most architects have when starting their business? Okay, I think the biggest setback is continuing to make time for your business, because what quite often happens, especially if it's if you're starting off with a small group of person or people or just on your own, you win a project and then you're straight into the project, and you find that everybody feels committed to the client, and you've got to perform really well for that client because they're your most important, they're your first client. And then what happens is you take your eye off the ball of your business. And as Geronimo says, quite often you get to a point where that project is coming to an end, and oh goodness, you haven't got another one to follow. And you haven't spent time making sure that you had the next project to come along.
Mhm.
And particularly with a small practice, is what you'll find is that if you can see me, the business is, so that's it, the business is going up and down like this. And actually what you want to do is to try to smooth out the ups and downs. So I hope that's a good answer. Okay, James is saying, you focused on manifesto and business plan, but I'm interested in the platform for publicizing this information as one of the tasks. The best media, okay. Okay, I'm going to be really difficult for this, James, I'm afraid, because the answer is it depends who you want to attract and who you
Yeah,
want your manifesto to be noticed by. So unfortunately, there's no easy answer. But if, for example, you know that you're wanting to be seen by a certain kind of developer or a certain kind of institution, then I would have thought the first thing you do is you start to look at where those people congregate. Are there networking events? Are there conferences? What newspapers or magazines do they read? Can you get some of your research or some of your ideas into those, and so on and so forth? So my sense is that you need to think, or you need to start with them and work out where they are, and then you can start to work out what is the best platform for you. And it might be
yeah,
social media, it might be Instagram. That, for example, I know many practices who are saying that most of their new business is coming from Instagram. How?
mhm.
I don't know, but that's how they're doing it.
Absolutely. Caroline, if I may add something there, I
Yeah.
absolutely agree with your question, with your answer, and I think it's a very interesting question. Another way to put it is that your sale channels should be the ones that coincide with the purchase channels of your clients or customers. And that is something that sounds extremely obvious, but actually some of the factors that Caroline was raising is customer relationships, not only the flow and the long-term relationship that you have with them, but how do you establish that first contact, right? So really think about who your customer is will help you to take that next step of defining where does your customer go to actually get the services that or products that you are delivering, and then you can design or you can think about what are the best channels. So it's pure logic on the one hand, but we overlook it quite often.
And I think there is a real tendency to focus on yourself and what you want to achieve, particularly when you're starting out. And actually, what you need to do, it's not going to work unless people in the outside world find you attractive. So you need to think about what they're looking for, not so much about yourself. Okay, Paritosh, is it okay if money is a driving force? Of course it is. Whatever you want to be your driving force has to be that driving force. But I would say that you need, however you set up your business, especially a service industry business like architecture, it has to feel authentic to your customers. And if your customers just think you're in it to make money, then they are not going to be particularly drawn to you. So if you want to make money and you want to make lots of money, you need to make sure that your love of architecture and design is the thing that you are able to project. So you still need to work out how that is going to be explained to people, I think.
Yeah, I think that's another very interesting point. Caroline was speaking some point about value, and she actually teaches a course in our program which is called Value Creation Through Design. I guess that probably a better way to think about your question, Paritosh, is can value be the driver, or how can I make value be the driver of my business? And then from value, how can I extract the money that is reasonable for both parts, your customers and your company? And that is where you will find that proper balance, and that is the kind of way of thinking that will help you to define your unique proposition to the market, right?
Okay, so then we have a hard time reading. Oh, I can't answer that question.
We will take over that. I'll write to Lydia and to the team to see if there's a possibility to send that. Thank you, Paulina.
Okay, Paritosh again. How can one improve one's business skills? Any medium, materials, or books, videos, author? Yes, there are some. There's an American guy called Daniel Goldberg, I think. Oh, no. Meister. Daniel. Oh, my brain has gone. I tell you what. Maybe the thing is to, if I give Geronimo the name of a couple of books that we can.
Absolutely.
Is that okay? Sorry,
yep.
I don't have something right at my fingertips. How to deal with brainstorming if you are a sole entrepreneur? Absolutely key. Right. I know of a number of groups where, and I don't know if they happen in other countries, where entrepreneurs can come together to talk to each other and to brainstorm. And the fact is that most of them, when they come together, are not from the same industry. Quite often you'll get people from different industries coming together to talk about brainstorming and the things which they are trying to achieve. And that is often quite a good environment in which to articulate some of the thoughts, because I think one of the most important things about that brainstorming is saying things out loud and getting things out of your head. So talking to people, even if they're from other industries, people who are entrepreneurs is a good thing to do. I think if you are on your own, then another really important thing is to make sure that your family is very happy with the business that you're trying to get involved with, because your business, particularly if it's just you, is going to take a lot of effort and a lot of your time. So, so I think you will need to be have your family's support as well. And the other thing you might do is to talk to your peers, people, if you have people who are in the business or collaborators, so maybe engineers or surveyors or artists or other people that you work with who might be interesting. The other thing which I would say is that once you start to get the germ of your idea together, if you have friends who are working client side in the markets that you want to work in, to test out your ideas with them might be a very good idea as well. Where are we?
Okay.
I'm getting Instagram interesting. We're not on it as yet. We've recently launched our website. We're a good network. I'm not too familiar with industry. Interested in? No, I agree. And sorry, this is James saying that Instagram sounds interesting. What's the reason Instagram is good for architects is because it's visual. And what you are selling, apart of obviously you're selling your service, but you're also selling your product. And I think that to be able to show beautiful images is something that is good. I'm not sure that the industry is interested in manifestos per se, as you say, but they might be interested in the culture that you are creating around your business. So the kind of images you're presenting, the kind of the brand that you're promoting, and so on.
Okay,
Daniel.
Yeah, where are
How would you? So
Daniel?
Gustavo, maybe is that the next
Yeah,
one?
exactly,
Okay. So Gustavo, how would you identify when a client wouldn't be a good fit for your practice? That's always difficult. I think it's important, particularly as you're starting out, to do credit checks on clients and to make sure you know that they are going to be able to pay you for the work you do. So that's one thing that I would suggest that any architect should always try to make sure about the solvency and the business credibility of the clients that you're working with. Whether they will be a good fit for you is one that's about if you are very clear what your culture is, what you are trying to achieve, then it becomes very much easier to assess whether the kind of people who are coming to your front door are people who are going to help you to achieve what you want to achieve. Now, not every client will be 100% fit. Not every client will push you exactly in the direction that you want to go in. But if a client is coming along with a project that will enable you to explore something that you want to explore, or will enable you perhaps to win an award in the area you want to win an award, or will enable you to make lots of money that will enable you to do something else that you want to do, then you should consider working with that client. But I would say that it's worth having a checklist of things that you will assess each client against. And I think it's also worth, if you take on a client because you're going to make lots of money on that project, you've got to make sure you do make lots of money on that project. Or if you do take on a project because it's going to allow you to win an award, then you need to spend perhaps extra time and effort on making sure that that project is finished absolutely beautifully.
Caroline, you were actually we were actually having this a similar conversation in February, if you remember, when you were in Madrid, and there was this issue of this idea of communication being very clear and very establishing a very fluid communication, not only to listen to what the client wants, but as well what you can project on that client, so that you two define a territory of coincidence in which you, in a way, endeavor together for a project that is within your practice vision, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you think about that importance of communication in this task?
Well, communication within your practice about why you've.
In general, to help you refine the type of client that you
Yeah.
are willing to have.
Yeah, and as I say, I think that knowing what you will not do is just as
Mhm.
important as knowing what you want to
What you
do.
want to do.
And you can communicate that without saying no, because what you do is you communicate the things which you love and are interested in and really want to do, and by doing that communication, you are by default, or by omission, not saying that you want to do the things you don't want to do, if I'm making sense.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely.
Okay.
Okay, guys. So we have time for to get a couple of more questions. We were in Gustavo. I think there's one from Mayol, another one,
Where's
um,
thank you very much.
and the final one from Paritosh, I think.
Okay, so
Oh,
um,
and more. Well, anyhow, Caroline, you feel free to pick a couple of
no, no,
them
that's okay.
that you.
I uh, I'm sorry, where I can't see any more
Here,
which are
there's
actual
there's one.
questions.
I can help you with that. There's one interesting one. There's an interesting one here by Eshwar Shakiran. How to bring developers to work with more experimental approaches.
How do you get developers to work with more experimental approaches? Well, um, ha. How do you, yes. Well, I'm working with a developer at the moment, setting up a competition for architects. And one of the things which has been really important is to give that developer the confidence to recognize the value of good design. And
Hmm.
once you get somebody, and many clients are quite scared of design. They don't know what it brings. They don't know why they should be bothering with it. People talk design in a language they don't understand, and I think that part of the thing about getting people to take a step out of their comfort zone is to is to persuade them that they're not going to fail, or they're not going to look stupid, and they're not going to be laughed at if they take that step. So building confidence within a developer and explaining to them how good design, or how you can help them to achieve their aspirations, rather than just saying, you need this because it's good. You
Hmm.
say, you need this because it will enable you to do what you want to do better.
Or actually, even this idea of return on investment that they think very much in those terms. And we, as you were saying, we just say that this is beautiful or this is a good design, but what does really a good design means in measurable terms? Measurable, quantitative, and how the qualitative improvements, contribute to that quantitative aspects of good design is something in which it's something that architects have traditionally failed to explain, and that we should reflect more on, definitely.
Good.
Okay,
Is there anything else?
there are a lot of them. If you want to take one last to close,
Okay.
feel free.
We,
Um,
I think that most of them are nice, helpful suggestions from people.
where are you reading, Yeshua?
I don't think there are any other
I think
special
it's fine.
questions for
I
me.
think we've covered pretty much everything. If not, You guys know we are always reachable. Danny has our contacts, and we're more than happy to establish a conversation if you need so. Caroline, thank you so
Hang on,
much.
there's one here. Go.
Okay, go for it. Yeah.
She's saying, can you answer my question 3? Where's how to influence,
Oh,
maybe
Q3.
how to
Okay, up
influence people
there.
from creative industry for some collaborative projects, which may lead to the growth. Most of the time, people have trust. How to influence people from the creative industries? You mean how? I think what you're asking is how do you get people to collaborate with you?
Yeah.
Is that uh, if I understand the question? Ah, yes, good. How do
Yeah.
you get people to collaborate with you? Well, that too is exactly the same thing as getting clients to collaborate with you. Getting anyone to collaborate with you is about trust, and it's about. I think it's about being really clear about what it is that you stand for and what you offer. And if you have a manifesto, if you have a business plan, then you can articulate to people very much more easily what it is you stand for. And if you're able to then demonstrate to them that by collaborating with you is going to actually add value to what they do, then they are more likely to want to collaborate.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you so much, Caroline, for being here. Thank
Absolutely, my
you to
pleasure.
everyone for this very interesting Q&A session. I just say we've got the emails, so to forward you the information, Danny would be in contact quite soon for that. And for all of you who are interested in seeing the updates of the program and of the School of Architecture and Design, stay posted in the website of the program on the MBArch. There is the full information, and there will be a lot of updates available from Friday on. So thank you. It's been a pleasure, and we hope to meet you or some of you quite soon. Bye bye.
Yeah, big thank you from me as well. So, bye.
Thank you, Caroline. Have
Okay,
a good
pleasure.
evening, everyone.
And you. Bye bye. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.